and gentlemen, to another edition of MnR Live. Tonight, we'll be talking about the 13 bloodlines of the Illuminati. And it's a big step for me when I talk about this because it means a lot to me. That's what started me, all of this. I'm wearing a shirt that I custom made about the 13 bloodlines of the Illuminati, the New World Order. And it all started, let me adjust my camera here. Okay. This all started a couple of years ago. I think there's a lagging in the camera. It's lagging. Okay. Anyhow, this all started a couple of years ago when I got this book right here called The Bloodlines of the Illuminati by Fritz Springmeier. And he was the one who got me involved in this. It's a big book. It's like an encyclopedia of this. And this book started me on all of this conspiracy stuff and the New World Order. I mean, I used to know a bit about it, but this really got me into it. And I'm going to be explaining this to me. This is what I want the show to be about the 13, a group that controls the world. They are at the top of the pyramids, and we are going to be talking more about this later. But now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to get Mario the Madman online.
Yeah.
Mario, hi. Not much.
Good evening.
I'm just explaining about tonight's show, which is going to be about the 13 bloodlines of the Illuminati.
Okay.
And how it all started for me a couple of years ago. It's just stuff happened to me and gave me, an 80-year-old man gave me a book called Le Journal Vert, and that's me, French newspaper, and they talk about conspiracies and stuff. And in that book there was something that said, in French, but I'll say it in English, the 13 families that run the world. That caught my attention, and that's how I started to research this. Go ahead.
Didn't I tell you about all
Well, you
this
told me about
before you started? Like I told you about all this.
Yeah, you told me about it back. We started biblical prophecies a long time ago, and then I kind of got nothing was happening, and after that I kind of got out of it, and then you talked about the aliens and that, but that was back in 2008. But I was kind of going through some stuff, some health problems, and I would listen to it, not much, but this just caught my attention. Sometimes you know something and something just, it hits you, like love at first sight, if that exists or whatever. That's what happened, and I went through a lot of trouble to get this book. I mean, this book is by Fritz Springmeier, a great author, and he was in prison because of releasing information like this. And there's 13 families, and let me just say a bit about the families before I take some text questions. There's the Astor family, the Bundy family, the Collins, DuPont, Freeman, Kennedy, Lee, Onassis, the Disney, Russell Van Dyne, Mergovingian, and the Reynolds family. But at the head of all this is the Rothschild. They're like the CEO of it. And these 13 families, they do a pyramid. They control at the top, and it does a pyramid. It goes to the Bilderbergs, and it goes all the way down the Trilateral Commission, and all the way down to the president, and beyond that. They are above the royal family. That's what I wanted to say about this family to begin with. And Mario, what's your thoughts on the 13?
This topic always excites.
Yeah, it does.
I've noticed that.
It does.
It excites you. It's like it gives you the stigmatic of pain, right?
I really do. I mean,
You love that.
I know, and a lot of stuff has happened to me, and the problem with all of this is that a lot of bad stuff has happened to me since I've been researching this, and sometimes I wonder if I'm not a target. But the thing is, whether I am or not, I have the man above, Jesus, to protect me above all of this. But the problem, the way I see it is that I do wonder how come the 13 families exist, right? How come nobody knows about it? And a lot of people have asked me that question. Nobody cares, but only one man, yes, only one man, Fritz Springmeier, who has discovered this group, how evil they are, and he's the foremost expert on this. I mean, I've done websites on it, but I know maybe this much, and he knows like that about it. But anyhow, it's wonderful. It's wonderful that he has written this book, and now they do sell this book on Infowars.com. But I bought it at Amazon 2 years ago, and I've read it through and through, and it's an encyclopedia. It's an encyclopedia on it.
You could even do
what?
You could even do what I did. Find it online, select it all, copy, paste it on a Word document.
Yeah, I know that.
Get it printed.
I know, but I wanted to have a physical copy of the book, because this is like the most, like I have all kinds of, in this book there is. Yeah.
That's the thing with mine, there's no picture.
I mean, it's so new that like when I was reading it was like with kid's glove. I was just reading it, putting it back, not a book that I want to bring out everywhere. And for people that didn't know, I even made an Illuminati resistance cup. For those of you, Illuminati resistance, we have ROI on you. It's anti-Illuminati. We've got a few questions here. I might as well jump to it. Oh yes, we may have a special guest here right about now.
Yes, I noticed. I see him online. I was about to take
Mr. Fritz.
Fritz is on.
You
There
did.
he is. There he is. Great.
Susie X asks, well, as far as I know, they go back to Babylonian times, the times of when almost the times of biblical times when there was always been a global elite, and they started back the bloodlines back then, but they weren't called the Rothschilds. And who are they? Well, we have the 13 families: the Rothschild, Astor, Bundy, Collins, DuPont, Freeman, Kennedy, Lee family, Onassis, Disney, Reynolds, Van Dyne, Russell family, and they are very, very powerful families that actually control the world, and everything that they do, they fund the wars, but they hide behind a wall of secrecy. That's what I can say. But I do wonder though, if these families, this technology, we're using their technology, and I do wonder if they do regret it, because I think that they do, Mario. I think that they regret inventing the internet, because Senator Rockefeller said that he regrets making the internet.
No. Why? It's even easier now. They can see how we're doing. It's even
Yeah, but we.
Why would they regret the internet?
But we're waking up to them. We're waking up to those jokers. You realize that?
Yeah, but okay, it's communication way, but they don't care. As long as they see what we're up to, we're waking up. Yeah, but you know what? As we wake up, they're just going to find other ways to put us to sleep. So they're going to put us to sleep in other ways, because they want to say, you think, listen, a criminal knows way before what to do to react. He prepares himself, saying today, I'm going to go rob a bank. Well, is there an escape when I go out from this bank? Is there going to be an escape if I go from the back? Is there going to be an escape from the front? Okay, there's one from the back and the front. I can go through this. That's how it works.
Exactly.
That's the least of the problem.
Exactly, but the thing is, they go back far away to Babylonian times when they used to use black magic. They've done all kinds of black magic back in those days, and worshipping all kinds of evil stuff, and there was always evil people, and it goes back to the lineage all the way from Babylonian times to now. So there's always been a global elite somewhere hidden that manipulates the population of the world.
Susie X says she left the room, so now we have to explain everything.
I had to leave the room. Okay. It's okay. No worries about that. How far back do these families go? Well, they go back to Babylonian times, like 5,000 years ago, because there was certain people that thought they were better than others, and there were probably reptilians in it. Like, and they followed gods, and they called them gods and everything, but they were actually demons. So they worshipped them, and they became powerful, and slowly it evolved to what it is now. But through all the years, there's always been a global elite, and as who it is, it's the Rothschild family, who's the head of it. Then there's the Astor, the Bundys, the Kennedy, the Kennedys, the Lai family, Onassis, Rockefeller, Disney, Russell, Merovingian, and the Van Dyke. It's about 13 families, but sometimes it switches. Like sometimes they go out, but it's always like 13 main ones, and they're trying to do what Christ had. He had 12 apostles, well, they want to have 13. It's simply word imitation. Okay, Fritz is not back yet. I don't know what operating system he was using.
I wonder. Right, doesn't make a difference.
We said everything froze, so it could take some while. Okay, we've got another text question.
Right.
What?
I hope he gets back.
Well, yeah. I don't know, it says attendee. Okay. Got a text question, audience question. I thought that I had read where a Frenchman entered fake names in an old book about the Illuminati, ND. Neil Strachman. I am not aware of what book you're talking about. I've never heard of this. What's the book called? I would need more information, but I've never heard of that. Maybe if you would be more specific, I could answer it. But no, I have no idea what this book is. What about you, Mario?
I don't know, I never heard of it. Do you know how many books get published every day? I never heard of it. Could he explain more in the chat or something? I don't know.
I would need, I would.
Oh, Fritz is back.
Is he?
Fritz is back. Fritz is back. I'm all excited. Yes. He's back online. Good.
Well, he's in the chat room.
Unless you know what we could do? Just ask him a question, and try and make him answer, and then we keep quiet. Could we do that?
Like, I asked him a question? Like, in the chat room, you mean?
And then we just, I don't know. I was thinking the chat room, if he could get on the chat room. If not, maybe we just, unless we may have lowered you, so I don't hear you now.
Yeah, but that's it, but it's on
myself.
Okay. I've got a text question.
Unless if he lowers also.
Wait.
Unless if he lowers also.
Audience question. I am trying to get back on Fritz. Okay, Fritz, yes. Okay, that's great. Because we at least you're in the chat room now. What we would need is if maybe we ask the questions in the chat and you answer it. You just look like I'll type in a question, or Mario, or whoever, and you answer it. The importance of a headset. I didn't know it was that important.
And maybe if he, how about if also he goes underneath us, the little thing opens and he puts it close to the middle, but towards the zero. Maybe that might help too.
Yeah, I was hearing Fritz fine. I was hearing Fritz fine, and when he spoke, I had no echoes. When you spoke or I spoke.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
But maybe if under it, where you see my name, if he lowers it, maybe that might not echo. I'm thinking. Maybe that could be.
Yeah. At least. Fritz asked a text question. Take text.
Okay, now you should ask a video question.
Yeah, Fritz, I can ask a video question.
Ask a video question.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
question. Honest question. How can the bloodlines go back 5,000 years like the Kennedys? Well, the way I understand it is, it goes back all the way generations and generations, but they won't call like the Illuminati. It was just an elite group, as far as I can explain it. But Fritz could explain it a lot way better than I could. But the way I understand it is that yeah, there was an elite group back then. Yes, of course, there was an elite group back then, and they were the elite or whatever. And I don't know what they called themselves, but they were generational, which meant I think they kept it on their family to have sex. They had sex with the members of their family, and it led all the way to this. But don't forget, it's 13 families, so you have to trace back the Kennedy family all the way times to Babylonian times. But right now, it's Fritz on.
He's on.
He's on. I guess he's just trying to.
The thing is
he's just trying to figure it out.
all you have to do, Fritz, if you're on, you just have to go on the side where it says 1, 2, 3. I think it's on the left.
Oh, okay. He's gonna ask though. He's on though. I think I am here online with the video. Wait, let's see. Okay, we'll get right now. Welcome back.
Is this an improvement? Well, the bloodlines originally had different surnames than they have now, and that's one of my coming projects is to try to track down what the original surnames are. The present name of Rothschild is really, in one sense, a cover name for what the actual name is. They go all the way back to Nimrod. So I'm trying to research out what the secret names of these tribes were before they took these modern names. Like the Kennedys that got mentioned, they go back to Brian Boru, and Brian Boru's blood is in all of European nobility. He was the original Kennedy. But there's a lot still that I need to learn. You can be guaranteed that all of your powerful bloodlines of antiquity, your Roman Caesars and the pharaohs and so forth, the Babylonian rulers, these bloodlines have managed to propagate themselves down through the centuries. So they've just quietly gone underwater. I don't know if her question, Susie X's question, was directed where she's wanting me to speak about reptilians or something like that. I answered it from a different angle, a historical angle.
She's asking you, okay, are all the presidents all in the bloodlines? She's asking you, okay, are the presidents all in the bloodlines?
Not all of them. Some of them have just been connected to them, like the Iraqis. But by and large, a lot of them have been.
What about Obama?
Which, if she has the book that you were showing the people, there, as you remember, right at the beginning, and I reproduced it in the back, there is a chart showing how 25 presidents are closely related.
Right here.
And so someone can look at that genealogy chart. Exactly. We can look at that genealogy chart and see how the presidents are closely related. And then there's several other genealogy charts in there showing some other ties. For instance, a large number of presidents go back to English royalty. And of course, then you get into studying where English royalty connects. That goes back, that's a story in itself. You know, William of Orange, who came over, his blood got into English aristocracy. You have some connections back to the tribe of Dan. You have connections back to Babylon. You know, the official title of English royalty, they see themselves as kings of Babylon, and their titles, the full titles that they carry are rather incredible. All the things that they see themselves as. And then there's the stone of Skion, which was called Jacob's Pillar, which came over from the Middle East. They're coronated on that stone, which is now in Scotland. Although I was told by one Scotsman that the one that they're showing the public is actually a fake, that they've got the real one hidden. I don't know. But there's a lot that connects British royalty back to the Middle East, and also back to some other weird things like you've probably been hearing about Transylvania and Count Dracula. Some people don't even realize that there really was a Count Dracula. There was. They think that was just Hollywood. The Hollywood has their image, but Vlad the Impaler did actually exist, and that's one of the bloodlines that the current British royalty are related to.
Okay, Fritz, I have a question for you. Have you heard of the Council of 13?
Okay, is there a question about the Council of 13?
Who aren't they the heads of each family?
You know, there's a number of Council of 13s that are identified, so that in itself is a topic, a large topic. It seems to be that 13 is a number that impresses the occult, and there's been I've identified more than one Council of 13. The Council of 13 that I got the names of the members of, it was not representative of each of the families. It was more like a grand area board. An area board sits over a region and makes the decisions in that region, the day-to-day decisions on how to manipulate that geographic area in terms of what their goals are. And the Council of 13 for the United States is like a glorified area board.
Okay, we've got another question. Mario asks to Fritz, did the 13 cause 9/11?
Okay. So Fritz, did what caused it?
Did they have anything to do with 9/11? The 13?
Is the question, what caused it?
They caused it. Did they have anything to do
It's
with it?
possible that it was caused by, you know, I don't have the final answers on that. It's possible it was caused by nuke, or some a combination of several things, and using some high-tech methods along with it was definitely a myself.
Because my theory is that
Well, yeah, go ahead. Express what you're thinking.
no, because I think that I thought that they use nukes, but they use blue beam to do all of that. The plane was actually made by a blue beam. The plane was actually made by a blue beam. That's my theory.
Well, looking at the film, the footage that we saw that morning on television is all faked. you got a plane that's, it's like Photoshop. The plane just comes into the building and it's Mickey Mouse Photoshop type stuff, I seriously question whether a plane even hit the building.
Could have been a military plane.
What are your thoughts on that?
I'm thinking it's a military plane or something.
Well, my thoughts is that blue beam.
We've got.
Susie sent a
Yeah, I
question.
know. I'm gonna put it up now.
Susie sent a question.
What do the two?
Okay,
You see it, Fritz? The question.
what do they want? Yeah, are they all powerful? Can we defeat them? Well, there's different ways one can look at that. Of course, people that look at the scriptures, they go, oh, well, this has all been prophesied. This is all, God's allowing this to happen. And so just relax and enjoy the ride, so to speak. This shows that Christ is going to return real quick. And I think that it's possible that from one vantage point, you could say that they can't be defeated, and yet evil in itself always contains the seeds of its own destruction. And I think it's defeatist just to give up and say, well, nothing can be done. That's to make an analogy, we're going to sweat, we're going to get dirty, we're never going to be totally clean, so why take a shower, because you're just going to get dirty again. That's kind of a defeatist attitude. A better attitude is let's do what's right, let's do what we can, and let's let the chips fall where they fall. While a lot of Christians are very certain that now is the end times and Christ is close to returning, I think without getting involved in a deep theological discussion on eschatology, I think that we need to have a sense of humility in understanding the scriptures, because for the last 2,000 years, Christians have been saying, and they were convinced that their generation was the last generation. This may not be the last generation, and Christ may not come next year. So if he doesn't come next year, and we have kids and grandkids, well, what kind of world do we want our kids and grandkids to live in? And that means that we have a responsibility to do what we can to provide something for them. We can't just throw up our hands and say, okay, well, you can't do anything about evil. They can have our kids, they can have our grandkids, they can do what they want, No, I don't don't see it that way. I mean, if other people want to lick the hands of the people that are oppressing them, you know, that's their business. But I don't think that's a real answer. I don't think that they're all powerful in the sense that they don't have problems too, and that they can have bad days just like the rest of us. There's been Illuminati kingpins that have made bad financial decisions and gone down the toilet financially, you know. And they live in a dog-eat-dog world where if one of them gets a little weak, the other dogs that are running in the pack will eat them up. So they're vulnerable that way too from each other. And there's been infighting between the Illuminati. And one of the problems that the Illuminati has right now is all the new wealth that's been created by people that aren't members of the Illuminati. They're definitely people that are within the system that follow their lead, but they don't follow the lead as close as they would like, and they're sloppy in the way that they follow directives by the Illuminati. So the Illuminati's got a lot of house cleaning to do to try to manipulate the world to be more puppet-like, more robotic. So they have their hands full with issues to deal with. It's not like everything's running smoothly for them.
Okay, I get it. I guess we have to talk slowly. What I'm doing is I'm making Susie X ask my questions. Like that, it's easier for you. You understand what I'm saying, Fritz? I know you're thinking I'm not it's easier for you in here. You understand what I'm saying, everybody?
Okay, you got another question here from Susie X. She seems to have lots of questions.
It's because I'm making lots of questions, because if we all talk, we get echoes, and then we can't hear it. So I'm communicating.
Okay.
Okay, Susie, ask a question if you have one. I think we have to talk really quick. Is that another question? No. I guess it's very I'll ask you a question.
One of the advantages of doing the show today is the next time I come on, I will have more experience with this in our live setup. I've never experienced anything like this before.
The headset.
Unless Fritz, hold on a second, if you go over and see me, you see that there's like a little light, and it says, you see that there's like a little light, and if you go to close to the zero, the middle to zero, the middle of me and Robert, I wonder if that will help. Both me and Robert, I wonder if that will help.
What do you want me to do with the line? You want me to lower my voice?
Just move the triangle. Just move the triangle.
Okay, it's in the middle now.
That might help.
But Fritz,
I wonder if you can.
If that helps some. Oh, you guys are fine.
but Fritz, you see this? This is a headset. But Fritz, you see this? $50 for next time.
Okay.
Yeah, so we got a question for you, Fritz.
Okay, sorry.
No problem, it's all good.
It's been.
It's an honor that you're on our show. Believe me, it's an honor.
Okay.
Okay. I've got a question. Okay. I've got a question.
Yes. One thing about being an author, as you've noticed from maybe some of your favorite authors, they seem to always be able to write a new book. There's no end to the books I could write. The question is which ones will be most beneficial? And I don't want to write books just to write books. I could spend the rest of my life writing books and have fun doing it. I met a woman yesterday, and she heard that I was an author, and she goes, "Oh, could you write a book for me?" And I said, "Yes, that wouldn't be any problem." The writing the book's not the issue. The question is what's going to benefit you out there. All my books have been written because I felt called by God to do this. So the book project that I have right now is one where I'd like to go in and give accounts of people that stood up to the NWO, the powers that be, and actually made positive change. So I want to give people hope, and that's one of the book projects that I have. I have a whole bunch of book projects, but whether I take them to completion or not's the question. Also, while we're on the subject of what I'm going to do in the future, I generally don't show my hand. In the past, I was reluctant to say what projects I had or what trips I was making. So it's not something I encourage a lot of questions about from the audience because,
You want to keep
first,
it private.
nobody can presume on the future, and second, if I broadcast my plans, I'm actually kind of setting myself up for more interference.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Like a trap kind of a thing?
That's for sure. Like a trap kind of a thing.
Well, they I get interference. You might call it the static of life from the powers that be from a lot of different directions. And, I really, honestly, if it hadn't been for God miraculously sparing me, I would have gotten snowed under with all of the weird negativity that happens. It's interesting. I was at Walgreens this morning, and the pharmacist that was waiting on me, she saw my name and she goes, "Fritz Springmeier." She goes, weren't you out on circuit with Prophecy Club? And I go, "Yes." So she knew about me, and then she goes, "Well, my mother investigates this stuff, and she was talking on the phone to somebody, and the next thing she knew, there was this black helicopter hovering right over her car where she was at." And I've had other friends experience the same thing, and so bizarre things happen when you start swimming against the tide. You start talking about these things, exposing them, bizarre stuff starts happening, and that's all I can say. If you've been in that zone, you'll know what I'm talking about. Otherwise, it's just too bizarre.
Okay, we've got another text question that I asked Susie to ask you, and it's right here.
Can you relate to that, Robert?
Ask you, and it's right here.
Can you relate? Like in what way? Being chased? Like in what way?
Yes, there will be some more false flags. I can guarantee for 100%. Do they have cures for disease? Yes, they have cures for these diseases. Do they hide them? Yes. Oh, yeah, they are making cancer into an epidemic when there isn't any reason for that. Yeah, there's no reason for people to be sick like we are. Alternative medicine is being severely suppressed by the medical mafia, by the big pharmaceuticals that tie back to the Illuminati kingpins. And they're increasingly using the legal system to make more and more things illegal that are healthy for us. Take things away from us. Do they have cures? Yes, they have. Even we have cures, which are being suppressed. Why? Because people that are sick are easier to control. We're easier to make money off of. And also, they're wanting to reduce the population, and so they're using many different things to reduce the population. Wars are great for that, but in order to really be effective, we need a world war, not these little, Afghanistan or Iraqi things that we've been wasting money on. There was a Third World War planned, so I still expect that to happen within our lifetime, and that should take out quite a few people too.
Fritz,
And of course, wars are great because you can have epidemics come right behind them.
what do you think of the Iraq and Israel war? What do you call World War III? Israel war. World War III. Iran and Israel.
Well, the Middle East was, yeah, the plans were to use the Middle East to manipulate events into a Third World War. Iran is now the new boogeyman, and Iran has far more potential to develop into a world war than Iraq had, because both Russia and China are protectors of Iran, and yet the United States seems to be gung-ho on bullying Iran. So we've got a ready-made situation for some serious problems. Plus we've got Israel in there. Israel's concerned about their survival. The way they set these things up is it's like they want to create situations where people can only see one way to go. When you had Pearl Harbor, most people never even thought that there was any alternative but to go to war with Japan, right? And so they're setting up scenarios where people don't see any alternative. Israel, if you've ever been in Israel, which I was, I stood on a hill or a mountain that was between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, and I could see off to one side, I could see the Mediterranean, and off to the other side, I could see Jordan. In other words, standing right there, the country was only like 15 miles wide. And when you realize how thin a sliver of a country it is, it doesn't, you can see why they feel like they have their backs up against the wall and why they're surrounded by all these Arab nations, why they feel like their survival's on the line. And of course then, if you take a look at what's happened with the Palestinian people, they in turn, you know, they feel like they don't have any voice in what's happening. The only alternative they have is violence if someone's going to hear them. So you see all of the different actors, and they don't really see that there's many alternatives. There's probably a lot more alternatives than people are seeing, but the way these scripts are structured is people are going down the pathway that they're meant to go down. And of course, Ron feels isolated and cornered and bullied by the United States. And most Americans don't have a historical perspective on how the United States has interfered in Iran's internal affairs since World War II. The Iranians are fed up with the United States and our CIA interfering in their country, but Americans don't realize that.
Okay.
So, you know, these scenarios have developed over many years.
We've got a text question from Neil. Do you see it, Fritz?
You know, the subject of the Knights Templars is one of these subjects that there's been
They are, right? I have a question. question to ask you. What do you think is going to happen at the London 2012 Olympics? Will it be a false flag, like an attack? That's what we've been hearing, Mario and myself. At 2012. Yeah. Yeah. The Olympics. The Olympics.
It would be the Hoover Dam. Thousands of books written on the Knights Templars. Imagine. They wrote Holy Blood, Holy Grail. The dams around the United States, the way they were, I don't know what's in the plans, and when I do, so whether they use that as a false flag or whether it understanding something, there isn't necessarily one explanation for a particular icon.
Okay. We have a question to ask you. What do you think is going to happen at the London 2012 Olympics? Will it be a false flag?
Read those books if you haven't. There's a lot of theories on the cup, and I think one of the things about the cup is, like so many things that are iconic, it can actually, there are different levels of understanding. You know, ultimately, the Holy Grail was actually, as the Holy Blood, Holy Grail brought out, the Holy Grail was actually a holy bloodline, the 13th Illuminati blood. Imagine. They wrote Holy Blood, Holy Grail, the Messianic, thousands of another way of investigating that is there was a trilogy of books written by a trilogy of authors, Lincoln, Lay, and Pageant. They wrote Holy Blood, Holy Grail, The Messianic Legacy, and The Temple and the Lodge. There are also some other books by those authors, but that was a trilogy that discusses the connections between the Knights Templars and European royalty and the powers that be. And I would recommend that, Neil, that you read those books if you haven't. There's a lot of theories on the cup, and I think one of the things about the cup is, like so many things that are iconic, it can actually, there are different levels of understanding. You know, ultimately, the Holy Grail was actually, as the Holy Blood, Holy Grail brought out, the Holy Grail was actually a holy bloodline. The 13th Illuminati bloodline was the sacred bloodline. So it wasn't actually a physical cup, and I think on some levels it's probably also been thought of as a physical cup. That's the way with so much when you get into the occult world, you can have different levels of understanding something. There isn't necessarily one explanation for a particular icon.
Okay. I have a question to ask you. What do you think is going to happen at the London 2012 Olympics? Will it be a false flag, like an attack? That's what we've been hearing with Mario and myself. Will it be a false flag, like Mario and myself?
There will be a false flag, and you probably are aware of what some people are watching for. Some people have thought that it would be the Hoover Dam. I don't know if it will be the Hoover Dam, but I can say this just from a structural standpoint. The dams around the United States, the way they were constructed, have a limited lifespan, and so whether they're helped to break or whether they just naturally do, we're over the next 50 years we should see some of these major dams having some serious problems. So whether they use that as a false flag or whether it just happens in the future due to the natural aging process is a good question. In terms of dams, ships and airplanes have always been, an airship, an airplane, has taken the place of ocean-going ships as an easy way to create an incident. So I think we can continue seeing more incidences created using airplanes. Buildings, we've noticed how they've used buildings. Oklahoma City, 9/11 buildings, World Trade Center. Again, the target that was picked for 9/11 was iconic. And so I would anticipate false flags of some iconic buildings. What, Big Ben, Eiffel Tower?
Yeah.
I don't know.
The Olympics.
I iconic things are nice scenarios. I don't know what's in the plans, and when I do become aware of plans to a limited degree, what I see is they're more like where you have alternatives. It's not like it's necessarily always locked into one script, but that it's a little bit more flexible than that. At a certain point, they lock in on a particular false flag, and then but it seems to me like it's like they have different cards in their hand, and they don't necessarily play a card. They may develop it, but never play it.
Use it.
Never use it. Yeah, never use it.
Okay.
I keep wondering if they're going to do a false flag with UFOs, flying saucers, aliens, good aliens, bad aliens, or whatever silly script that they want to throw at us. Usually, when they do these kind of things, they try to overwhelm people so that you just like there doesn't seem to be any reaction time. It's just like it just hits you. It's just a barrage that just stuns you. So I don't anticipate that we're going to be given much chance to be prepared.
Because I hear that it's going to be done in London 2012.
So that's a good reason to discuss some of these things. Maybe by discussing some of these things, maybe that will mean that they just leave them in their hand and don't play them.
Because obviously they want to do something that we're not going to think of doing. We won't think of it. Like 9/11, no one had no idea really. We won't think of it. Like 9/11, no one had no idea really.
Exactly. I mean, looking backwards, you can see that it was definitely. You can see that the insiders knew that it was a target, but we, hindsight is always better than foresight. Now looking back, you can say, oh, okay, yeah. Look at all of these cartoons. Look at all of these things that were showing what they were going to do.
The Simpsons.
But yeah, it surprised us.
Yeah, we've got another text question.
Okay, do I think that we can uncover these families and fix our world for the better before the end of time? There's that possibility. Whether that's probable or not, is a good question. It's one thing to speak of possibilities. It's another thing to mention probabilities. The world seems to be like its problems are insurmountable. But for anybody who's aware of all the technology that's not being used and all the things that could be done, all these problems could be rapidly ended. It's not like we have to live with that the world couldn't be fixed. The world could be fixed, and it could be fixed very quickly. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if after a Third World War, when they want to consolidate things and show how great they are, that they don't come out with all of these things that can fix things so easily. Perpetual motion machines, free energy, things that would prevent us from getting disease. yeah, we could fix things. It's not, we could fix them today if we were given a real genuine chance, if they didn't have all of these controls to manipulate things from happening. Back, I think it was 1997, I met a man who had invented flying saucers. He was out of Canada that worked. I mean, he's not the only one. Repeatedly, people have invented anti-gravity flying saucers, but the technology is suppressed, you know. Yeah, we can fix our world. That wouldn't even be difficult. Just let some of these people loose that, you know, here a couple months ago, a scientist goes, Fritz, you know how I got involved in knowing about all of this? He said, we invented something that would give people, I can't remember what he said, like 80 miles per gallon or something like that. And he said, it got suppressed. He said, that's when I started realizing that there was something fishy going on, and I started investigating things. Man, turn all these inventors loose that have invented things, you know? Turn all of these people that have alternative medical answers loose. Just let us fix things, and we will. It wouldn't take very long.
Fritz, I had a question to ask you. Do you do you know if in Mars, the Illuminati, they have bases there? In Mars, the Illuminati, they have bases there?
Well, the last that I heard, that they had removed those bases. But I don't know. I knew as a fact that there were bases there. I felt 99.9% sure of that, but I don't know what they have done in recent years. And of course, a lot of these things, when people ask questions about the last few years, with me being out of the loop, and you know, I sequestered off on a vacation. You know, I didn't have my normal sources of information, and so I'm wondering if what I had heard is true, that they decided to shut that down. But I don't know why they would, because there's a lot of economic value that can be gained from that planet, and so you would think that they would persist in at least visiting, even if they had shut down the main colonies.
Okay. I have a question that's kind of weird. But what's your view on Zionism?
Well, let me make an analogy. Let's say I said, you know, 2,000 years ago, my grandfather owned this property, and so therefore I'm going to kick you off of it, and if you don't like it, I'm going to shoot you. You know, that's Zionism. You know, it's an outrageous concept in my opinion. That somebody can base a claim, nebulous at best, that their ancestors had a geographic area, and therefore it belongs to you now, 2,000 years later. That doesn't hold legal water. Further is the issue of are the people that are making the claims even genealogically connected with the people that originally had the land 2,000 years ago anyway? That's another issue. So I know where Zionism came from. I know where it was funded, and it was an Illuminati concept. And I know a lot of people think it's a biblical concept, but they're mistaken when they think it's a biblical concept. And that's a big subject, you know.
Yeah, very big.
I could see debates going on endlessly on that, you know, whether it came from the Bible or didn't come from the Bible. But I would throw this out for people. Why was it that nobody had thought of Zionism until about, 1870? Before then, the Christians had never heard of the idea, you know? If it was such a biblical idea, why had nobody thought of it up until then? I think it's
So they're not Jews.
it's an Illuminati created idea that's outrageous.
So they're not Jews. So they're already Jews.
I will let people call themselves what they want to call themselves.
But Fritz, in the Bible, it talks about the synagogue of Satan. In the Bible, it talks about the synagogue of Satan. They say they're Jews, but they're not. They say they're Jews, but they're not.
There you go. Tel Aviv is a homosexual capital over there.
Read that, Fritz?
What do you mean? Sodom and Gomorrah?
Read that, Fritz?
What did you say, Mario?
Is it like you're making serious? Is it no Sodom and Gomorrah?
It's not what people picture it to be. Most Israelis are very secular, and most of them come from Russia, and which means that a large percentage of them are atheists. They're not even believing in God. So to pull this thing out of the hat that God gave us this land when most of the people that are taking advantage of Zionism don't even believe in God, isn't that another outrage? The majority of people in Israel don't even believe in God.
Yeah, but they've always had that problems.
They're atheists.
Time of Moses, they've always believed in the other stuff. Like
Say
in
again?
the biblical time in Moses' days. In Moses' days, they've always had that problem.
Well, there's been a lot of destruction of words and destruction of history. I know it's popular to call Moses a Jew, but Moses was not a Jew. He was a Hebrew, or you could go so far as also to say he was an Israelite. And where are the descendants of Israel? You know, who are the descendants of the Hebrew Israelite nation? They're a lot more than what is commonly realized. That's a whole issue in itself, very controversial, but I think that the answers are there for people that really want to let the facts speak for themselves and not just parrot whatever they've been told.
So, the Rothschilds, what nationality are they? They're German, right? They're not Jewish. What nationality are they? They're German, right? They're not Jewish.
The Rothschilds?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Rothschilds are Ashkenazim. The Ashkenazim came from Caesarea. They're a mixture of the Khazars and also refugees from the diaspora that came in. So and then after these Khazars moved into Eastern Europe, and then from Eastern Europe to Western Europe, you had also, to some degree, a mixing, not a lot, but some. You have a mixing in with the Europeans. So that's kind of the history of these people. Is there's some mixture there, and like I say, their secret genealogy has them traced back to Nimrod, which is from Babylon. But yeah, so which would help explain too some of their focus and their rituals on Babylon. Rothschilds have some particular interest in that. Of course, one of the centers of Jewish learning after Christ was Babylon. We're talking about after the Roman Empire, a lot of Jews moved to Mesopotamia, which also Babylon, and created, and that became the center for Jewish learning.
Okay. Well, we've got another question for you, Fritz. Is it possible the founders tampered with the Bible, and can we still trust it for holy inspiration?
A lot of people have concern that it's been tampered with, and I definitely, when you have something that's sacred like that, there's going to be effort put in to tamper with it. But I think that the meaning of Christ is a spiritual meaning. The true meaning of the Holy Scriptures is a spiritual meaning, and there's enough there that if you are understanding it spiritually, what's been tampered, the tampering is not going to prevent you from getting the spiritual message. You know, look at your 10 Commandments, or look at your teachings of Christ. You know, Christ said you can boil the law down to two things that it hangs upon. One is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, and then the other one is to love your neighbor as yourself. Well, hey, can you understand that? Can that be tampered with? I mean, it's pretty clear, you know. So if somebody adds or subtracts a book out of the Bible, is that going to keep me from understanding what I just quoted from Christ? No, it's not going to make any difference. If you understand things spiritually, the fact that we do or don't allow Clement's letter to be put in the Bible is not going to make any difference one way or the other. I think that it should be trusted, and I think people need to look beyond all the little. They're going in and looking at the scriptures like they're an editor looking for every comma out of place or everything, and they're missing the forest by looking at the little grains of the tree. You know, they're not seeing the beauty of it all. They're not seeing the spiritual message. They're so busy taking and dissecting it. You know, if you take a person and you start dissecting them and putting them under a microscope, are you going to understand the beauty of that person? No, you're missing the whole. You're missing who that person is. and that's what they're trying to do with the scriptures.
Fritz, I have a question for you. Is the royal family, are they reptilians? Is the royal family, are they reptilians?
That's an interesting question. Boy, and I don't know where to go with questions like that.
Okay.
I'll just tell what I did back in 1993, and it'll kind of maybe explain my position.
I saw a
In
video of you.
1993, I had written a
I
book.
saw a video of you.
I wrote a book that I never showed anyone in 1993 about the reptilians, reptilian bloodlines, reptilian underground installations. But all of this was compiled on the basis of people, third person. Is nothing solid that I myself could really verify. There seems to be something really important there on the subject, but it's so bizarre that I decided, you know what, I'm going to stick with things that I can nail down. And I just put that whole project, that whole book up on the shelf. Now, for someone who wants to go and run with that subject, David Icke came along a couple years later and he ran with that subject. And he's been running with it since. And, go whichever way you want with it. I don't know. That's a good question. And I don't know the answer. I learned a lot of information, but then I didn't feel comfortable that I could nail it down for sure one way or the other, and so I just backed off from it.
Okay. We have another question. But Fritz, I want to ask you something before we go to the next question. How did you come across all this information about the Illuminati? To begin with. Just a little, you could just say a little about it.
Learning is a step-by-step process. And so people look at it's like, you might ask a person, how did you manage to climb Mount Everest? Because let's say I was at the bottom of Mount Everest and I looked up at the top and I go, how could anybody climb that? Well, it's step by step. And learning is the same thing. It's a step-by-step process. Why did I take more steps than other people? Because for one thing, having not grown up in the United States, but I grew up in Nepal between India and Tibet, and so I didn't have a television. I spent my time reading, and so from second grade on, I was reading history books. In third grade, I was trying to check out an adult history book from school, and the school librarian wouldn't let me because she said it was an adult history book. And I accidentally mentioned that to my parents, and they went straight up there and reamed the librarian out and said, if he says he wants to read it, he will read it. So I was reading history in third grade that most adults don't read, And right here I have Encyclopedia Britannicas. This is the set of Encyclopedia Britannicas we had when I was a kid, the 1960 set. I was busy reading that as a little kid while my peers were watching cartoons. So, so learning is a step-by-step process. So if you get started on Mount Everest a long time before everybody else, why eventually, you surprise people by reaching the top. If you had been around me in 1990, you would have seen me working 20-hour days. I would be researching and writing 20 hours out of 24. And I would only stop when my eyes were so bloodshot that they couldn't focus to read anymore. They actually couldn't see anything. They would be so bloodshot that I couldn't focus to even see what I wanted to continue reading. So I put an enormous amount of energy, and I'm a researcher, and I research and read incredibly fast. And then I've been doing it for quite a few years, and so you just get out ahead of everybody. That's all. And then the rich get richer. You know, if you're information rich, you become even richer. Because once people realize that I've researched the Illuminati on the level I had, they dumped more information on me. So it never ends.
It never does. Never does. Susie has a question for you. Never does. Susie has a question for you. What is with the reptile? I lose people when I go there. I don't really get it myself. Who are they? Who are they?
Wow. Well, I'm trying to avoid the subject.
Sorry about that.
Humanoids that are reptilian, and then you know, one way I introduce the subject is if people are Bible readers, I point out to them that all through the scriptures it talks about Satan being reptilian. You know, he's called a snake or a serpent in the first book of the Bible in Genesis, and yet he's a serpent that's walking around and talking. So he's obviously not the type of snakes that we're familiar with. And they consistently use different names to describe them, a dragon, you know, and other reptilian type names. So for people that are familiar with the Bible, I bring them into the subject that way, you know, and talk to them about how here we have a humanoid who's reptilian. People that are claiming to have information or firsthand experience with the underground bases talk about reptilian humanoids, and then along with that comes a project or projects, I really should say, where there's kind of some kind of a hybridization being done, and then I think the best evidence that there's something there relates back to an earlier question that I didn't really answer, and that was, what's their purpose? And if you look at the agendas that are being run on this planet, you know, you see the destruction of this planet, you see the destruction of humankind. This is not a human agenda. So when you see that it's not a human agenda, I think that's just blatant evidence that there's something above that's not human, that's anti-human, and so the best explanation for that is the reptiles, the reptilian humanoids. Phil Snyder, I don't know if the listeners are familiar with Phil Snyder. He was suicided. He lived not far from me years ago, and he used to talk with me. He claimed to have he claimed to have worked creating the deep underground military bases, and he described in detail having actually a shootout in an underground base with the reptilians. So,
I heard of that.
over the years, I've met people like this. They tell me things. What am I to do with it? I mean, he pulls off of his shirt and he shows me these scars all over his body, and he says these were from the fight that we had. All the other humans that were with me were killed. I was the only survivor of this fight between us and these reptilians down there in this complex. What do you do with that? Well, for me, I accumulated a lot of this kind of testimony and then shelved it.
Well, wasn't this the same guy that found holes and he went looking and he found these strange holes and then he went in? Is that the same guy? As I could have sworn a while ago I did research on him, Mr. Schneider.
I don't know if you have the same person in mind. Phil Snyder did go around the country and give some talks before he was suicided. He had one arm that didn't work, and the way he was suicided was not the way someone with one arm would have committed suicide. He was found hanging.
Yeah, they killed him.
And then they immediately cremated his body here, which is illegal, and ruled it, without doing a real investigation, immediately the police just ruled it a suicide. There was so much weird things around that whole event. He didn't suicide himself. He was going to come over and talk to me. He was excited about exposing all of this. When you're on a mission, you don't commit suicide. He was on a mission, and I never got to have that last meeting with him because the day before we were to meet, he was suicided.
What was he? Wasn't he in what was he in life anyways? I forget. Not in the military. Was he?
Well, he said he was a geologist. He was associated with the military. He was a geologist helping build the deep underground military bases. He said that there were 140 of these deep underground military bases. For those that purchase my Deeper Insights book, you'll see in the middle section, there's a list. I don't know, I think I list about 100 or maybe a little bit more than 100 of those deep underground military bases. I showed him that list and he flipped out on me because he thought that I must be working for the government if I knew that much. It took a while to calm him down.
Or sometimes I think of Cooper, William Cooper. Is it
William
William
Cooper, yeah.
Yes.
William Cooper, yeah. Bill Cooper.
Right.
He's another one, right? That knows a lot of stuff.
Bill Cooper.
Yeah, he ended up getting shot by the police.
But it was Gilly who did it, right? But it was Gilly who did it, right?
All I can do is repeat different versions of what happened, but apparently he had been having some people that had been making a lot of noise or whatever, and this car of guys that were not in uniform came by, and he thought that they were just kind of like hoodlums, and he went out there with a gun to chase them off of his property. And of course, they were police, and seeing him with a gun, they did what police are good at doing. They shot him. Here in Portland, I don't know if it happens in your area, but it's very popular now to do suicide by cop. You know, you just have a plastic gun, a toy gun, and you call up 911 and have the police come out to where you are. And then when they see you with, you know, it can be a plastic gun or a plastic knife, they'll shoot you full of bullets, and it's called suicide by cop.
Never heard of that.
So, you know, he wasn't trying, pardon me? William Cooper wasn't trying to do a suicide by cop, but in a sense, that's what happened.
Okay.
He tried to chase them off, not realizing that they were plainclothes police.
We've got another question. Sorry about this, but if the reptilians are demons in the flesh, what demons possess people in the spirit? Good question. Demons possess people in the spirit. Good question.
Yeah, we're looking at several different phenomenon. Let's for a minute look at the biblical account. When Christ did what's called by the Catholic Church an exorcism, or the Protestants call it a deliverance, you know, doesn't matter what word we use, he chased the demons out of these people. What did the demons say? They said, we need a body. So they went and went into the body of a pig, or actually, excuse me, a herd of pigs. The point I'm making is that they were using people as a container. There does seem to be a need, and I think that these, what people are calling aliens or demons, I think they're interdimensional. And as they come into this dimension, they need a human container to stay here. And so one kind of demon is needing, they're looking for a human container. I think that there's other kinds of spirits. I don't think there's necessarily one type of spirit. There's another type of spirit that doesn't need a human container, but is off the top of my head, I don't know how to put it into words, but it's more it's like if you're constantly being angry, you open yourself up to a spirit of anger, you know, and that is almost like a ghostly computer program that comes in and sets on your mind that kind of locks you into that spirit. So that's yet another kind. And then when we're talking about reptilians in the flesh, we're actually talking about several different models. There was the winged Dracos, and then there was the Dracos that had no wings, and then a couple different other varieties, and then what I believe is that the small grays are simply manufactured life forms. They're being manufactured underground, and sometimes they're controlled by artificial intelligence. but those are just manufactured creatures. As to who began manufacturing them first, that's a good question. But they're also related to the reptilians. Is the small. There's two kinds of. There's the tall and the small grays.
But they're both evil.
Again, these are the. we're talking on subjects I'm trying to avoid.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I'll go to the next.
Yeah, because your expertise is the
Yeah. Well, I've got another question for you, and it has nothing to do with reptilians. Daniel Miller asks, "Hello, Mr. Springmeier. Can you explain your theories on Mars being inhabited by elites?"
Well, I didn't say that they were inhabited by elite people. They're inhabited by those people that were sent up there. And it's not my theory. It's what insiders provided me as far as information. I'll give one little anecdote. Back in 1992, when I was telling people writing about this, one of the families that subscribed to my newsletter lived in Saudi Arabia, and they got really upset with me talking about the Mars colony, and so they wrote me a really angry letter and said, "Cancel our subscription to your newsletter. We don't want anything to do with this kind of silliness." And then they happened to have that newsletter setting out in their living room, and they had someone who was up in the CIA come by, and he opened it up and he read my information there, and he looked at him and he said, "Wow, this guy's right on. We do have a colony up there on Mars. Fritz he's right on his information here." And so then they wrote me back and said, "Give us back our subscription." I don't know what to say to people. What I did in my articles is I tried to use logic. Okay, when I was a little child, the big issue when I was a little kid that we all talked about is there life on Mars? The books were all, books written about the solar system. Is there life on Mars? Well, strangely, that question is still being asked, and yet how many billions, I don't know, maybe trillions of dollars, I haven't added all up, it's probably trillions of dollars have been spent on how many missions, spacecraft being sent to Mars. These are high-tech spacecraft that are supposed to land, they're supposed to patrol over the terrain, they're supposed to take pictures, and blah, 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 and we're still asking the same question, 50 years later, we're still asking the same question. What I was pointing out in 1992 was that, and I can't remember, I listed them all. I listed all the spacecraft that had been sent to Mars, and not a single one of the spacecraft that were sent to Mars was successful like it was supposed to be. Most of them totally failed. Some of them were partially successful, but instead of sending back clear pictures, they sent back fuzzy pictures or something like that, And I was trying to point out, why are all of these missions going haywire? What is really going on here? Why are they failing us? Why are they not coming up with the answers that we're spending billions of dollars on building these spacecraft, and then they get to Mars and they malfunction? What's going on here? And I was trying to point out that the public wasn't supposed to learn the details of Mars. That's why they were failing. And then I predicted that the next craft, which was supposed to be the ultimate in spacecraft, they had invested a lot of money and everything. It was supposed to be foolproof. I predicted that it would fail. And of course, people thought I was ridiculous, but it did. Well, look at the pattern, people.
We see a pattern. We definitely do see one. We see a pattern. We definitely do see one. We've got another question for you. Adam, another question for you. Adam asks, Mr. Springmeier, do you believe that we are capable of taking down these elites in the near future? Do you believe that we are capable of taking down these elites in the near future?
You know, I believe in God. I believe that there's power for good. And who knows what good can do? You know, you watch in the cartoons, somebody pulls a thread, and that thread keeps coming, and the whole garment is unwoven. And then there's the story of a battle being lost because of one horse loses its nail, and then because it lost its nail, it lost its horseshoe, and because it lost its horseshoe, the general didn't get to where he was supposed to. We live in a very complex world, and sometimes very little things can have big impacts. So I don't think that people should discount the power of good. A little match in a dark room lights up an entire dark room. So I think people should stand up and be counted and be good people. You know, like Robert and Mario here, they're doing what they feel called to do. They're just ordinary people. And hey, I'm an ordinary person too. You know, I didn't have any more resources behind me than any of the rest of you people out there.
Very kind of you to say that about us. Very kind of you to say that about us. Fritz, have you seen the website that I've made on the 13 bloodlines? I sent it to you a while ago.
Say again?
I made a website about the 13 bloodlines of the Illuminati a while ago, about 2 years ago, and I sent it to you.
Yes, I looked at it.
And I was very worried.
But it's been a long time since I looked
It's
at
okay.
it.
I was very worried that you'd be upset that I did it, because in case you thought, that I made money off it, but I made no money. I made nothing. I just wanted to educate people on it.
That's fine, Robert.
Okay.
You know, I believe in the free flow of information. You know, without mentioning any names, there's a few people that are out there doing like what you are, you know, bringing guests like myself on. And people will say, well, so-and-so is blah, 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 blah. And it's like, so if you believe in freedom of speech, I mean, why should it bother us that such and such announcer is having guests on? You know, they want to nitpick about people's personalities or opinions and say, well, he shouldn't be on because he doesn't believe my pet theory or blah, blah, blah. Come on. I believe in the free flow of information, and that was what the whole judicial system of the United States was founded on, was if you let everybody talk back and forth, the truth's going to sift itself out.
The truth always comes out.
The Holy Bible, yes.
Because the thing is, you understand something, okay? The reason why I'm calling that is because a lot of people are concentrating on darkness, which bloodline is the darkness. It's good to learn. I'm not saying it's good to know, but this is more important. That's what I feel.
Right.
It is. Like I read
Good for
it
you.
page to page. I've already finished. I read it all.
Good.
But the thing is
Very good point.
this over the bloodline. But it's good to know the darkness.
Thank you, Mario. I appreciate you bringing that up. Let me address that. You know, it's one thing to curse the darkness, but we're not going to get anywhere cursing the darkness. We have to have positives in our life. The people that I was helping in the 1990s get out of the Illuminati, the only way that they could get out was to see a power that was much more powerful than the Illuminati. It took miracles every day based on the kind of miracles that book talks about. They had to see that there was a power, that God's power was more powerful than the Illuminati. That's the only thing that allowed them to leave. And so, yes, it's one thing to see evil, but it's even more important to actively do things for the good. And if you look at Christ's life, and he's, in my opinion, the best example of anyone, he was actively doing good things. He wasn't just sitting there grumbling about evil. Exactly. Well said.
Well, he did sit with the sinners. You know, they were wondering, why are you sitting with the sinners? You should be sitting with us. That's what they were saying. If you're not sinners, and he says, no, I want to go have lunch with the sinners, which is normal to do,
But he could see the hearts, the low people, the people that were out there beat down, the little people that had a heart to do what was right, versus the elite, powerful people that self-satisfied, someone who feels like they can take care of themselves because they've got $400 million. What use does he have for God, you know? He's his own God. And putting anything ahead of God is idolatry. And it's so easy to fall into idolatry by not keeping God as the
number one,
the center of our life and the thing that we're underneath. You know, we put ourselves up here, and God is no longer Lord. You know, that's idolatry. And so he went with the people that he realized were had a spirit of poverty, a spirit of need. Blessed are the poor in spirit. The rich in spirit, the people that think that they've got it all, and what can you do with them?
that's right, for sure. Very well said.
Nothing's important in this life. And this is all by what God has done with Christ.
He's the most important, Jesus. He's the most important, Jesus.
That's right. Yeah, unquestionably. It's so wonderful that we've got such a good example that, and this last month has been extremely difficult for me, and I am so thankful that I have the example of Christ and that I have that spirit to help me out, because if I had been just a normal, everyday Joe Blow, I don't see how I could have pulled through. I really strongly encourage the listeners to look at the life of Christ, look at the claims of Christ, look at what he offers them, because we need a power of good in our life. We all do.
We've got a question. Thank you so much. I will be reading your book. Thank you so much. I will be reading your book. Do you think the 13 are mad about your book? Do they care? Susie X asks you. It's your book. Do they care? Susie X asks you.
Yes and no. Somebody told me years ago that within the Masonic lodges they had a discussion where they wanted to kill me. Sometimes in bumping into a few Masons, I saw that they had a lot of hostility towards me. And I've seen assassination attempts all my life. So obviously they weren't exactly happy about what I was doing. But do they consider me that much of a threat? I don't know. That maybe someone should ask them. And they probably wouldn't even give you an answer, because they don't even like to acknowledge anything about themselves. The real Illuminati doesn't even want to admit that the Illuminati exists. On one level, the project that I thought would really hurt them, and that was exposing their mind control. I thought that I was going to do some serious damage. One of the Illuminati kingpins that I exposed, and I thought I had done some serious damage to his situation. I won't go into the details, but I thought I'd actually accomplished quite a bit in terms of taking him down a few notches. He got a promotion. Well, he got a promotion from Grandmaster to Ipsissimus. And that kind of showed me, that kind of humbled me to realize maybe I'm not doing as much as I thought. Because I was surprised he got a promotion,
You mean the MK Ultra?
Yeah. Yeah, but there were some other things too involved with him, and obviously I wasn't doing as much as I thought I was, or something else that I'm not seeing was involved in the picture.
You mean you're talking about this Illuminati kingpin?
Yeah, yeah.
But you can't say the name, right?
Well, I could, but it doesn't serve any purpose.
Okay, because I'm just saying
it's
the audience is asking.
It's a big subject.
But it's
Well,
okay if you don't want to
it was about a Rothschild here in. It was a Rothschild here in
You
Oregon,
don't want to get.
and
You don't want to
there was a particular community that they had, and I exposed the community where they lived and everything. they had to all sell their houses. I interfered with a lot of their little projects that they had going. And actually got some, got information on different rituals, people that watched the rituals outside, people that had participated in the rituals on the inside. I actually had done quite a bit of exposure, so I was surprised that this Grand Master got promoted. Anyway.
Yeah, Fritz, I had a question for you. What is the Mother of Darkness?
I had a question for you. What is the Mother of Darkness?
What is the Mother of Darkness?
The castle, right?
Oh, the Mother of Darkness Castle, Chateau. The Mother of Darkness Castle. Mother of Darkness Castle is in Belgium, near the little town of Munro. That was one of the things I had the privilege of exposing. Chateau de Ameroy. And for those who speak French, pardon my accent. You'll see some pictures of it in the Bloodlines book. Other people, I began exposing the castle in 1991, and in 1998 there was a big scandal in Belgium where people started identifying that people in power in Belgium were not only pedophiles, but they were Satanists and were using the castle for rituals and for all kinds of weird stuff. And so there was a big scandal involving the castle, and Interpol from Belgium sent someone out to interview me concerning what was going on in the castle. There was a big cover-up, and in order to keep the lid on this whole scandal, they had to assassinate about 110 people. So at one point I had a list of all the people that got assassinated and pictures of them and everything, why they were assassinated. It was a scandal on the scale of JFK's assassination, you know. And the Mother of Darkness Castle played a role in it all, but they've got the lid back on. They managed to kill enough eyewitnesses to put the lid back on.
Are you still being persecuted day to day? Are you still being persecuted day?
Yeah, there's pressure.
There is, eh?
Fritz, I got a question for you. Is Billy Graham a Freemason? Someone told me Billy Graham is a Freemason. Billy Graham is a Freemason.
Yeah, I was the person that had the audacity to publicly come out with that. The highest ranking Freemason to defect from Freemasonry to Christianity, I spoke with him a number of times, and he said, you know, Billy Graham was at his 33rd degree initiation ceremony. Only 33rd degree Freemason participated in that. And yes, Billy Graham was, or is, he's still alive, is a 33rd degree Freemason. There were plenty of little clues along the way that verified that. If you're familiar with the Scottish Rites publications, and they changed the name, it used to be called the New Age. It used to be the Supreme Council of the 33rd Degrees publication, periodical, was The New Age. They changed the title. But back then, you know, if you read the articles that were in that magazine, that periodic, you would see that the articles always wrote about Freemasons. You know, they don't write about the profane. They would write articles. They wouldn't necessarily identify the people in the articles as being Freemasons, but if you know who is and who isn't, you would realize that that's all they write about. So when you see these kind of magazines and they write about Billy Graham, that's like a heads up to you that, okay, the person's a Freemason, even though they're not coming out and saying, okay, 33rd degree Freemason Billy Graham. The fact that he's mentioned by them, you know, and then you see a lot of other little clues, you know. I would have to go back and look at some of the things, but some of the things Billy Graham was saying, promoting DeMolay, which is children's Freemasonry, and how Billy Graham would promote, you know, if he had a choice between promoting this person or that person, that Freemason would be promoted instead, you know. There are a lot of little backup circumstantial evidence that showed that he was indeed what this insider, ex 33rd degree Freemason was saying. And then there's a lot of things about Billy Graham that are really off color. What's her name? Kathy. I'm spacing off her last name. She wrote a book like in 1997 that Tex Mars was selling. I recommend that book to people because it's fairly thick, and when you read through there, you'll see that if you just scratch below the surface, you'll see that there's a lot about Billy Graham that's really off color. You know, the news media, Time Magazine, he's Man of the Year, blah, 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 and his public image is pristine. But you start scratching below the surface and you see a lot of strange things about the man. In fact, I myself, just taking things that he himself has said, I saw him one time, I visually myself on television sat there and watched him say that he had played, I'm trying to remember the number, I think he said something like 110 golf games with Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon was his good friend, but he has other good friends. And I'm like thinking, how much time does it take to play 110 golf games with Richard Nixon? Our public image is that he's out there, you know, saving souls. Meanwhile, he's busy playing golf games with Richard Nixon and other people. I met a man. He was the adopted son of Joe Bonanno, and I read Joe Bonanno's autobiography, and Joe Bonanno mentions him. And this young man had been an insider, and then when he went to South America on doing a drug deal for the mafia, Christ converted him on a mountaintop, and he gave his life to Christ, and then he started exposing the Illuminati, the New World Order, and everything. And I got to talk with this gentleman, and he sent me his manuscript for his book. They killed him, and they destroyed his manuscript for his book, but I got it before they killed him. And anyway, he talked with me about, because see, Billy Graham would come And his adopted father, Joe Bonanno, was one of the capos, one of the heads of the mafia. And Billy Graham was best of friends with this mafia boss and would come to their house and spend time, you know, once a year. And so this gentleman, Dave, he was concerned that Billy Graham was rubbing shoulders with all these Illuminati kingpins, and he was concerned for what he was seeing. So he managed to get 3 days with Billy Graham in a hotel room back east, and where they had some privacy one-on-one. And he outlined to Billy Graham the New World Order agenda, the Illuminati, these Illuminati bloodlines. He outlined all of this. And he said, you know, he was trying to get Billy Graham to break with all of this and realize what he was involved with. And Billy Graham told him at the end of the 3 days, he said, I'm a captive of that organization. I can't break free even if I wanted to. They've got me. And then this gentleman, before he was killed, shared this all with me. So, anyway, you know, for what it's worth.
Yeah, but that's what made him so big.
Fortunately, I'm still alive to tell the story.
Thank God. We've got a question. Why is the media so compliant? Do they realize they work for the controllers, or are they just MK? They work for the controllers, or are they just MK?
Well, as long as you're swimming with the current, you're okay. You know, one time I was visiting with one of these big Christian ministers, and in the course of our discussion, I accidentally used the expression "the controlled media," and he went ballistic on me. He got really angry, and he said, "Before I became a minister, I used to be a reporter for ABC. You know, nobody told me what to write. We weren't controlled." I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa!" I said, "Answer me a question. Your boss hired you because they liked the way you thought and wrote, right?" He says, "Yes." I said, as long as you were writing what they expected, they were going to be okay with you, right?" And he says, "Yes." I said, "If you had stepped outside of their expectations, what would have happened? You would have gotten fired, wouldn't you?" He goes, "Yes, you're right." So see, not everybody is necessarily directly. Joe Bonanno. And
He was controlled.
this gentleman, Dave, he was concerned that Billy Graham was rubbing shoulders with all these Illuminati kingpins, and he was concerned for what he was seeing. So, Joe Bonanno. And they managed to kill enough eyewitnesses that that's all they write about. So when you see these kind of magazines, and they,
But this guy's so
and then there's a lot of things about Billy Graham that are really off color. What's her name? Kathy. The New World Order agenda, the Illuminati, these Illuminati bloodlines. He outlined all of this. And he said, he was trying to get Billy Graham to break with all of this and realize what he was involved with. And Billy Graham told him at the end of the 3 days, he said, I'm a captive of that organization. I can't break free even if I wanted to. They've got me. And then this gentleman, before he was killed, shared this whole. So, anyway, for what it's worth, fortunately, I'm still alive to tell the story.
Thank God. We've got a question. Why is the media so compliant? Do they realize they work for the controllers, or are they just empty?
Well, as long as you're swimming with the current, you're okay. One time I was visiting with one of these big Christian ministers, and in the course of our discussion, I accidentally used the expression the controlled media, and he went ballistic on me. He got really angry. And he said, before I became a minister, I used to be a reporter for ABC. Nobody told me what to write. We weren't controlled. I said, whoa. I said, answer me a question. Your boss hired you because they liked the way you thought and wrote, right? He says, yes. I said, as long as you were writing what they expected, they were going to be okay with you, right? He says, yes. I said, if you had stepped outside of their expectations, what would have happened? You would have gotten fired, wouldn't you? He goes, yes, you're right. So see, not everybody is necessarily directly under mind control or control. As long as you're swimming with the current, you're fine. Try stepping outside and swimming against the current, and you'll find that current's very strong. But most people don't. They just swim with the current. I've had reporters that have said that they will write an article and then the head editor above them just rewrites it, and then, they haven't even written the article in their byline, their name gets stuck onto it, and they just go along with it. They continue swimming with the current. If they swim against the current, if they swim upstream, what's going to happen? They're going to be fired. You go back and look at who owns the media, and you'll see you can very easily track down that the media is owned by the powers that be. It's been that way for the entire 20th century, and it hasn't changed just because we went into the 21st century.
Fritz, I have to ask you a question. What do you make of the connection between rock music and devil music is controlled by the Illuminati?
The music industry is just like the media.
That's Whitney Houston. Was she murdered by the Illuminati? Whitney Houston, was she murdered by the Illuminati?
That's That's a good possibility.
Because that's what I keep hearing all the time.
I don't have a final answer.
No, but it's a good possibility, isn't it? It's a good possibility, isn't it?
Right.
Because it makes sense though, but in a way, I don't really have the proof for that, but I keep hearing it all the time. But in a way, I don't really have the proof for that, but I keep hearing it all the time.
Yeah.
Michael Jackson was part of it too. He was controlled, no Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson.
Okay, the question was, you must admit that Graham helped a lot of people. Would that not offset any bad associations? Actually, what Billy Graham has done, I wish people really were aware of what he did. Now, let's just discuss that for a minute. When Billy Graham takes a crusade to a given area, the churches in that area support him, right? So when Billy Graham did his crusade in Warsaw, Poland, what churches make up the Polish community? Catholic churches. So 99.9% of the churches that supported him in the Warsaw Crusade were Catholic churches. So where did new lambs, little lambs, get sent? They got sent to Catholic churches. Okay? I've had one man who wrote me and said, I went forward in a Billy Graham crusade and gave my life to Christ, and I had never been associated with any church before, and they sent me, they direct new converts to a church. They directed him to a Catholic church. It took him a few years to realize that as a lamb, he had been sent to the wolves. You have a crusade come into a given area, and the churches in the area support it, and they will donate up to millions of dollars for that crusade to take place. Well, what Christians don't realize is the analogy, if you want to study it, and people that have studied it will have seen, really, it's like someone coming into an orchard, and let's say you have a beautiful orchard with lots of apple trees, and they cut down the apple trees and they bash them and they spill a lot of the fruit, and they get maybe one basket out of an entire orchard, and a little basket of fruit, and they say it was worth it because we got this. They don't see all the damage that's done. The Billy Graham crusade people keep track statistically of what they're doing, and they know that a large share of the people that come forward, if they come forward for the first time, fall away because there isn't any depth. You see, if you read the scriptures, it says go and make disciples. It doesn't say go and make decisions. I had a good friend. I was a track athlete in high school, and a friend of mine who was also a track athlete. In fact, he took first place in state in the mile. He went to a Billy Graham crusade. He got saved. Supposedly, he made this decision for Christ. And 2 weeks later, without any follow-up, he gave up on the whole thing. And he would say, well, I've tried Christianity, and, basically what the whole experience did was inoculate him against ever becoming a Christian. Because he would say, well, I've tried it. Tried it. He went forward and made a decision. But that's not what Christ was talking about. Christ said, go and make disciples. Don't make decisions. It's a whole different, why did Christ tell these men, follow me, and have them live with him day in, day out, so he could impart his life to them? It's a whole different concept.
Okay, well, any final questions for because I know we've probably pumped you up with enough information.
I know that's going to be.
We've probably pumped you up with enough information for my question.
It's going to be a very controversial thing to hear anything bad about Billy Graham. I've taken my share of heat on that.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Well, you know, I'm sure, you will make everybody else. You cannot, okay, you can look up to a man to tell you that you could Bible and find things out for yourself. As long as you give people Bibles, and as long as you give them what you tell them to read it, that's how I look at it. Because you can't never look up to another man and find what does this mean, right?
Let the Holy Spirit guide you. Let the Holy Spirit guide you.
That's our true teacher right there.
I
He
agree.
convicts us of our sins. He teaches us that right on.
Right on.
He's also a lawyer.
Right on.
He's also a lawyer.
He is. He definitely is. He is. Definitely is.
You know, I also have this alias handbook. And this helps me out.
Yeah, that book, okay?
There's any answers to questions. I love this book. Yeah, I love this book.
There's some really good resources out there. You know, for those people that start studying their Bible, I recommend, a Strong's Concordance. Using a Strong Concordance, of course, you're going to find it easier to use the King James Version because that's what most of your Strong's Concordances are based off of. There's some really good Bible resources out there. That's not the only one. Cruden's Concordance is another one.
Well,
Because there's all kinds of different versions. Because that's the thing. We don't know which is the best one. Some say the New King James is the best. Others say it's what I have, the New International Version. We really don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things in the New International Version.
If we view the Bible as a spiritual book that the Holy Spirit's going to reveal to us, then the best Bible version is the one that God is using to speak to you through. And now there are some versions that are perversions. It's really obvious that their translators were trying to warp the Word of God. But the Holy Spirit could even use a perversion because the Holy Spirit can step right over the what man is. And that goes back to the Billy Graham phenomenon. Who Billy Graham is will not stop what the Holy Spirit wants to do. The Holy Spirit can work in people's lives in spite of who Billy Graham is. So that doesn't mean that because you got saved in a Billy Graham crusade that you didn't get saved. The Holy Spirit can work in spite of Billy Graham being a 33rd degree Freemason. Holy Spirit's willing to work through anybody. And that's one reason why we need to stay humble.
Fritz, I have one last question for you. Do you believe the rapture is soon?
I don't believe in the rapture theory. I don't believe it's scriptural. There, I just said another big controversial thing. The dead in Christ will rise at some point, but this whole thing that God's going to prevent Christians from suffering, that's pie in the sky nonsense. Christians have been suffering throughout history, and Christ said, they're they're going to persecute you like they persecuted me, you know. And repeatedly we're told in the Word of God that we're going to suffer for righteousness' sake. So the whole idea that God's going to take this apostate American church that's warm and fuzzy and apostate, and he's going to protect them from anything that's uncomfortable is just they're just kidding themselves. If God was wanting to work with the American church, what he's going to do is beat up on us a little bit so that we can maybe wake up and realize how sick we are.
Okay, so because many people that I talk to
One more question.
don't believe in the rapture also. Go ahead, Mario. Don't believe in the rapture also. Go ahead.
You know, the Mormons, a lot of these saints, you know, those people, who made them?
Joseph Smith Jr. is their prophet, and he said that he had been given the gold plates that allowed him to create the Book of Mormon, and then he also came up with a number of other books like the Book of Abraham. But I think if people want to have a better history of how that all got started, they should go to some of my writings. They should read my Be Wise as Serpents book. They should read the Bloodlines of the Illuminati book. And they should start seeing how the pieces of the puzzle fit together. And then you will understand better what Mormonism is all about.
Well, I know that they said that Lucifer is
What they claimed it to be.
his brother to Christ or something. To Christ or something.
Okay, I got a question. What do you say to people who don't believe your Mars New World Order remarks? Hey, everybody's welcome to think what they want. You know, I mean, I don't care if you want to believe it or you don't want to believe it. I'm just throwing out the information that insiders have given me that fits with the facts as one can see them. And if somebody wants to accept that, that's fine. And if they don't, that's fine too. Why should it bother me?
Yeah, Fritz,
I wouldn't say anything to them. I'd say, well, you know, you're welcome to your own opinion.
Fritz, I have a problem with some Christians that tell me, don't worry about the Illuminati, don't worry about the New World Order, don't worry about nothing, God's going to take care of everything. You're going to be raptured. Don't worry about nothing, God's going to take care of everything. You're going to be raptured. So stop worrying about it, but I still have a problem with them because there's something that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Stop worrying about it, but I still have a problem with them because there's something that doesn't make sense. I have to worry about it.
Yeah, for one, it's unbiblical.
I have to worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah, for one, it's unbiblical, and for two, it goes. It's sort of like that old saying: "Someone who's so heavenly minded, they're no earthly good." You know, we have to come down to reality. Here, in the here and now, is where we meet God. God is eternity. We are in touch with eternity at this one point in time. So, you know, people that are, okay, let's think of the future. Let's not think of the here and now. They're copping out. You know, that's just an escape. That's escapism. That's like being on a drug high, you know. I don't want to be in reality. I want to be in the future. You know, well, hey, we're here and let's make the best of it.
For sure. We've got one last text question. We've got one last next question. Fritz?
Why are people looking towards the Maitreya, the so-called world's teacher? Is he the Antichrist? In the 60s, 70s, we saw this teacher come on the world scene, Lord Maitreya. What we have. Okay, I have to explain things to explain things. Some of these questions are hard to answer with a real succinct answer. In the scriptures, you see prophetic patterns, and we go in and out of prophetic patterns. They repeat themselves. So there have been many antichrists over the years. Napoleon was an antichrist. Hitler was an antichrist. These are minor fulfillments of this. Because the reason why that's true is because you look at the book of Revelation, for instance, it's truth. Truth is always truth. And people are the same. Evil, the kingdom of evil is the same. God is the same. So you have these prophetic patterns. So, Maitreya was an antichrist type. But is he the final fulfillment? No, he isn't the final fulfillment. And within the Illuminati, they've raised up a number of candidates because they're hedging their bets, so to speak. They have a number of people that they have groomed up to be the Antichrist. And these sometimes, like with this one guy that they were trying to get as an Antichrist, I believe this was in the 90s. They were doing some programming on him and ended up frying him, frying his brain. So, things happen. They're not God Almighty, and so they have several candidates, and as they have delayed when this final fulfillment is going to be brought forth, of course they had to go with another generation of candidates. So they've been continually trying to improve. They're very selective on the bloodlines that are going into the Antichrist, and they're working hard to create very powerful programming. In other words, they're hoping that he has a lot of powerful occult powers and psychic abilities, and a lot of they're trying to develop these things in him, and so they've got several candidates that they're working with to their pool of candidates. Hopefully, for them, from their vantage point, their best candidate can be brought forth at the right time, and but we won't perceive of him as an evil person. We will perceive him as like a Christ-like figure, like a Maitreya type figure. A world teacher that's just an incredibly enlightened person.
Okay, Crystal Hernandez says, I read your books. You are one of my favorite authors, and I just want to say I admire you and God bless you.
Thank you, Crystal.
And the last question before we go.
And thank you, Robert.
Oh, you're welcome anytime, Fritz. You're welcome anytime on my show. It's an honor to have you, and really makes me happy to have you. You don't know how much this means to me. And the last question before we go, Fritz, go ahead, read it.
There is supposedly a book written before the Book of Mormon stating the same things. Have you heard of this? Yes, I had studied that. I can't pull up the name of the author, but there was a book that was written that was almost identical to the Book of Mormon, and the book was stolen, and it had been created as a novel, and when the book resurfaced, it was it resurfaced as Joseph Smith Jr.'s Book of Mormon. Yeah, so yeah, I'm familiar with that, you know, and of course, the Mormons are going to dispute that and are going to say that that's not true. But from what I can see, it seems to me to be an accurate explanation of how the book was created. It was actually stolen and modified some, but basically stolen from somebody from this print shop where yeah. So yeah, and I can't remember the book that details all of this, but there's at least one, if not several, books that tell what happened there.
Well, all right. I guess we're gonna call it a night. I want to thank you very much, Fritz, for having us for coming on our show. It was an honor and a pleasure, and I do hope that you'll come back on the show.
Yes, now that I've had the privilege of being on here, and we had a pretty good time. We brought out some pretty important things. We talked about the importance of Christ in our lives. We talked about what's going to happen in terms of the end times according to the scriptures. We talked about a lot of important issues. So I hope that our listeners receive some kind of a blessing from this. And thank you all for listening.
And I want to thank you, Fritz, and we'll have you on again very soon. Next time we'll be able to talk better because you'll have a headset and you won't be like robotic.
Yes. Yes, my apologies for that. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Being on the show.
And God bless you, and God bless all the viewers, and we'll be on back next week with another show. Thank you very much.